NU, I'm Katrina, and today I'm going to be giving some advice and tips about how you can travel cheaply within Europe for a weekend trip. I mentioned last week how I wanted to travel smartly and also enjoy Rome, but I want to take advantage of the fact that flights here are a lot cheaper than the US. There are some things to consider though when traveling if you do want to travel really cheaply. One is that these budget airlines usually fly out of a secondary airport, and so you have to kind of consider how you're going to get there and what time the departures are. So for example, I'm flying to London this weekend and my flight leaves at 6:30 in the morning, which the flight time doesn't really bother me, but it's the fact that public transportation is not running at that hour. So I researched some other ways I could get there because there's no way I'm paying for an Uber or a taxi. The whole point is to get somewhere, point A to point B, for as cheap as possible, and that just seems like a frivolous thing to do. So I found that there are shuttle buses I can take from central Rome to the airport I need to be at, and it's €6. So most cities have an option like that, and if you land at a reasonable time, you can also, at your destination, just take public transportation. But I would say look into it beforehand, because oftentimes if you buy the tickets online, it's a lot cheaper than when you get there. That's another thing. I know Airbnbs are really popular and they are pretty affordable in most cities, but I would say that hostels are still a really great and cheap option. Just make sure to do your research because there are different types that are more party and social oriented, and then there are some quiet ones as well. I was in Prague this past weekend and I stayed for one night in a hostel, and then the other 2 nights I stayed in an Airbnb. But the hostel I stayed in was wonderful, and it was I think it was $6 a night. And I had everything I needed. I was in a 10-person dorm, but it was so quiet and peaceful. I was really impressed. The lobby had a cafe that was open 24 hours. So I would say just do your research and read reviews because you can find a really cheap accommodation in most European cities. Another thing to consider is the country you're visiting, how or what currency they're using and how their economy is doing, because Western European countries are typically more expensive to visit. Also, countries like the UK and Scandinavian countries they're not on the euro. So consider that as a factor because you might be surprised at how quickly things add up when you have to constantly convert things and you realize how much you're really spending. I would say look into visiting Eastern European countries. There are a lot that aren't on the euro, but the dollar is very strong there. So if you're trying to travel cheaply and explore more parts of the world, I would say broaden where you want to go within Europe. Don't just hit the major cities. Another thing is to travel very lightly, not only because you're taking public transportation, but because a lot of airlines will charge you a lot of money. They try to charge you for everything. Especially Ryanair, they will charge you for text updates, they will charge you to check in, to print your boarding pass. So make sure to read all of the fine print beforehand and just be prepared for doing everything ahead of time and packing a lot less than you think you need. I hope this advice was helpful for how to travel cheaply within Europe. I will be back with another video next week. I'll probably include part of my trip to London this weekend, and make sure to subscribe to the Geo channel. Bye!